Hey, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AWS Pulse. I'm Rafael, your host, and I'm here joined by John, my amazing co-host and a new guest for the week. John, over to you.
Hey, I'm John. I just want to introduce our awesome guest for this week. This week we've got someone who's been with me my entire AWS journey. Got to know Srikanth a little bit whenever I just got started here. Srikanth is a senior manager, Srikanth Baheti, for Solutions Architects on the Quicksight team, and now Quicksight. So he maintains an active involvement in developer advocacy as the primary contact for the Quicksight Dev Corner. And I would just like to toss it over to Rafael for the first questions. Welcome, Srikanth. Welcome, everybody on the stream. Happy to have this conversation. Let's go ahead and get it started.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Rafael.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's get it started. So, Srikanth, it's customary here for us on the AWS Pulse to always start from the guest journey. In your case, you've had this remarkable journey, with Quicksight from solutions architect to, from customer to SA and now leading the SA team. That's a very, very niche perspective that very few people have. So, what's the most, I guess, fundamental insight about enterprise analytics and BI and everything that you have learned from this, very different experience you've had with Quicksight so far?
Sure. No, that's a great question. Yeah, thank you. So the most fundamental insight I would say I've gained from experiencing this overall enterprise analytics across different roles is that like successful analytics adoption isn't primarily about technology, right? It's about understanding the human decision making journey as part of data analysis. And as a customer, to begin with, I learned firsthand how analytics tools need to fit naturally into your daily workflows. Then, as a solutions architect, I saw how technical excellence alone is not enough to guarantee success. And finally, now that I'm leading the Quicksight SA team, I'm observing that the most successful implementations are those that bridge some gaps in customer journeys, right? Mostly I'd like to categorize them into three. The gaps are mainly between when you have data and actionable insights. The second gap is technical capabilities and your business needs. And the third gap is your initial implementation and your adoption. The adoption needs to be sustained. So these are the gaps that I notice across the board when we talk about enterprise analytics. And the key to bridging these gaps is understanding overall the enterprise analytics is ultimately about enabling better decisions and not just delivering data.
It makes
I
a lot
like
of
this.
sense. Makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Rafael.
No, I was just gonna say I like this. Yeah, enabling better decisions and not just like dashboards and making data available.
Yes.
Yeah, this is quite cool. I think most of the enterprise analytics implementations I've been a part of, like people are so focused on getting pretty dashboards and data in front of people that it's not what is the real goal behind all of this is what you said, right? Enabling better decision making. I like that. I'll carry that with me. Sorry, John, over to you. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
I think, Srikanth, you told me before something like this is like, don't begin with the answer you want. Try to begin with the question you want to ask. And then from there, it becomes a lot more clear as to how you should build out this analytics program. It's like, people don't often think of it that way. And I think that kind of opened it up for me whenever I went to have those conversations with folks, like trying to design it. It's like, well, no, you're thinking about it wrong. Let's talk about the question first. We'll get into the answers later.
Right. No, absolutely. And then see, it's about getting to the answers
Mm-hmm.
and working backwards from your questions, right? You always work backwards from the question and then answer. You need to know what you want to build, then you go about building it, and that's how everything around us, like be it a satellite, be it a rocket, be it anything that we are building, we go backwards from what we want to get to, right? That is very important. And second thing is making it actionable is more important when it comes to analytics world. If it is
Mm-hmm.
not actionable, it's not useful. I can
Makes
throw
sense.
bunch of dashboards out there, bunch of metrics out there, but if they're not actionable, if I'm not able to take it and make meaningful decisions and act on it, then it's of no use.
It's just so much noise then, right? So we're
Yes.
just adding to the den of data. It's not like we don't have
Yes.
failures to deal with already. Sorry for the
Yes.
alliteration. That was accidental.
Yeah.
So you talk about the journey here, Srikanth, and you did that flip, right? So you went from being a Quicksight customer, and
Yes.
then 5 years ago, right, you switch, you come in, and you're actually on the team for Quicksight. So what's that before after look like? I'm just a little bit more curious about that journey. What is the before and after, seeing it from the outside and seeing it from the inside?
Yes, absolutely. So QuickSight, when it started, when I started my journey with QuickSight was very, very rudimentary. It was very naive tool, I would say, where we only had like analysis. We didn't even have dashboards. We only had like
Hmm.
connectors, analysis, and tables. Not what we see today as QuickSuite is a completely different evolution, I would say, and that is driven by market demands, customer asks, and everything. And obviously, like a lot of feedback, lot of thinking that went in from AWS side as well.
Great. I want to take that evolution that you had, and I'm going to go to our second question here. Quicksight is now 10 years old, right? So it started in 2015. It was pretty cheap compared to other BI tools. I think was like 10, a 10% of other BI tools at the time. And
Yes.
so it didn't have everything, but it started knocking at the door of some established players. So looking back at that decade-long evolution, we added some ML stuff with ML Insights, ended up having QuickSight Q, the first thing actually to have that Q moniker. And now Q is everywhere inside of the AWS ecosystem. And
Yes.
now, just like last week, right, we have Quick Suite. So that's just mind boggling trying to put my mind around the beginnings to 10 years down the road. So, what's the biggest lesson that AWS has learned whenever we've been taking this journey about what enterprises actually need versus what the traditional established BI industry was actually providing for folks?
Sure. Yeah. So before that, I'd like to give a small fun fact. Like you said, rightly called out, Q, the branding was
Yeah, yeah.
introduced by QuickSight back in 2020. Right? It was announced and launched at reInvent 2020, and that is the branding that Amazon across the board adopted for its all natural language querying capabilities. So that's just a tiny bit of a fun fact for everyone out there. Now, coming to the biggest lesson that I have learned personally is uh, it's about like enterprises do not just need better tools, right? They fundamentally need a different approach to analytics. That is what I have learned. And with modern businesses, how they operate actually is also driving how analytics works. Traditional BI was great. It focused building on sophisticated features for your builders, for authors who wanted to create dashboards. But then what we learned from those experiences is there are three critical enterprise needs that we need to address and that were not being addressed by anything out there. One, as you mentioned, cost, right? The cost investment by that was needed by enterprises across the board was like, hey, you have to calculate, you have to think about infrastructure, you have to think about everything before even you could onboard your users, and you pay for that. Whereas what we did is we went through pay per use economies that scaled with actual usage. It didn't need you to like have a beefed up server and whatnot. It scaled automatically based on actual users. And what did not drive is like licensing did not drive how many servers you need. It was completely driven based on usage. Second thing I want to call is analytics getting to everyone, right? Where embedded analytics, you want embedded analytics that could seamlessly integrate into your applications and existing workflows. Last, democratization of data. That was very much important. That was not possible with the licensing model that was out there. With this type of pay per use licensing model, what enterprises were able to do was they were able to scale and make this available for everyone alongside adding machine learning insights, Q for natural language querying and processing. So we learned that enterprises needed to make complex analysis accessible to business users. Finally, the evolution of Quicksight's initial launch to Quick Suite today reflects our understanding that enterprise analytics is not just about features, it's about making data driven decisions accessible, affordable, and actionable.
You've brought up Quick Suite, and we are going to get there. We are. This is definitely a Quick Suite show. And inside of that discovery piece, the cost and democratization of both analysis and democratization of data, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. It's actually, I mean, I've been using Quicksight in my day to day. So being able to get access to data to understand what's happening with my customers is something I go and drive to Quicksight all day long. In addition, I mean, it powers a lot of the things that we actually use inside of the house of Amazon. A lot of folks, talk about using, feasting on your own food, and Amazon definitely does this quite a bit.
Yes.
And you've developed this going down some of the discovery pieces too, and I want to plug in with that just to double click in this with that QuickSight and Enterprise Analytics, that developer corner and the way that you've pulled some of these pieces out. How does that relate to discovering what those enterprises actually want?
Yes. So there are like when it comes to analytics, people only just think like, oh, report developers need to be
Hmm.
engaged, right? Or consumers of data or administration only need to be engaged. But then there is a bigger portion when we talk about embedded analytics. That is where developer persona comes into play, because developers are the ones who are actually going and creating, taking what report developers are building, analysts are doing within QuickSight, and embedding that into business applications where their actual user base is. That is
Yeah.
one use case. The
So they don't
second,
have to go to another tool. They can just go play with the application that they're already in, and you don't
yes,
have to have the switching tool context gets lost
yes,
sort of a problem. They can
yes,
just have that right where they're at. Yeah.
exactly.
Embedding makes a lot of sense. I've got a lot of customers that actually really enjoy the embedding feature.
Sure. So for that, like developers, and the gap that we saw when we launched developer corner and developer advocacy as part of my
Hmm.
extended role, was developers were struggling with, hey, how do I go about getting started with embedding in QuickSight? Where do I go? Where do I find resources? How do I implement? I'm running into a challenge. How do I solve that? That is where this QuickSight community and whole developer corner came into existence, and we laid out a corner for developers where they can get their questions answered without any issues.
And that makes a lot of sense. So if you're embedding and you've got authentication issues that you're trying to get that figured out, how you're going to plug in with, say, Okta or something. If you
Mhm.
got a question of how you're going to set this up as a SaaS, so you run a SaaS application, you want to embed something. How do you get those embeddings to work so it's tenant aware?
Yes,
Those sorts of things. So that's a great place to go for those sets of resources.
yes.
Yep. I
And
really
overall,
really appreciate that. Yeah.
architecture help also, right? Like there are cases when developers do not really understand how they can do build multi-tenant architectures. QuickSight does support multi-tenancy, so how do they go about implementing it as part of their application? This is the case where we talk about those independent software vendors, like we call them ISVs, who have their use cases. They are selling analytics, they're selling their products, and as part of their products they're selling these analytics and providing these analytics to their end customers. And that is where embedding this experience into the applications, but then keeping complete isolation between different tenants, different customers of theirs, is also crucial. So all that information is available on developer corner for you, with best practices laid out, so you don't have to uh, go do a Google search or go search on various different things. You have one stop shop for everything you need to know about embedding.
And on this evolution, you said it's evolved into Quicksight now. And before we get in deep on Quicksight, I want you to just let the audience know, I've heard about it. I've heard the term. Maybe they haven't actually gone out and played with it. Maybe they haven't seen some of the demonstrations. Tell us, what is it? Like, just give us a definition. What if you put Quicksight into a definition? What is Quicksight?
Yeah, so Quicksight is in my mental model. Quicksight helps you address your what type of questions, your why type of questions, and how type of questions. So let me just break it down a little bit. And I don't want to go feature by feature and explain, but overall, for what type of questions, when you think about it, this is typical BI world. If you think about any typical BI world, you have dashboards where you have bunch of insights, you have KPIs, you have that donut chart, various different charts that tell you the data story, what is happening in my data. Now, once you realize what is happening in the data, the next question that comes to your mind is why something is happening. When you think about why something is happening, the thing is, like in the past, you used to go and say, hey, can you download or extract this data out of our data warehouse to data engineers, get that data, do a deeper analysis, go research on that, and then find why something happened. And the turnaround time was somewhere from days to weeks.
Yeah,
Now,
for sure.
to address those why type of questions, that is where chat experience in Quick comes into play, where you can straight up ask those deeper questions of data and get those insights spit it out to you with the latest technologies that are available, all driven by your data. That is second thing, right? Now you have addressed that why type of question. Now you know, oh, why did the sales go down? The sale went down maybe because of a geopolitical issue, maybe because some salesperson was on leave, or some region we were not doing good. Now how do I prevent that from happening is the next question. This is where you come into how. So Quick lets you do that with research. You can ask Quick to do research on your behalf and get that deeper insight onto how you can prevent it from happening in future, again, all driven through your data. You can also supplement it with documents, etc., your strategy for upcoming quarters, and it will all consider that as part of the research. Now, if you rinse and repeat this on a regular cycle of month or week or day, that is where other features, cool features and Quick help you automate all of this stuff. So in a nutshell, Quick can address your what, why, and how questions.
Oh, and it's
And
fantastic as an experience. I've been using it a lot at work, and it ties so many things together. So if I want to go query, say, my email and tie that together with some of the Slacks that have come in, and then knock that out into my cloud drive and actually understand some of the documentation that went along with it, and I ask one question, it can go do all three of those things. That changes everything for me, because I don't have to go search for it myself and plug those things together. And that's just one thing. Then if there is a Quicksight dashboard that already had the data, and I can go plug that into the Quicksight, and then go query that information that goes along with it. Man, I've just been geeking out with this thing over the last week, and I've barely touched all the features. This is something I really want to dig into a little bit later. Raphael, I think you had a question on this one,
yeah,
right?
no, I was just gonna say. So I mean, I mentioned before, like it stayed with me when you said like the start with the question, and then one thing that I was in my mind is like, what if I, I'm a, and you also mentioned about democratizing access. BI tools were notoriously expensive. Most small companies, startups, and wouldn't even have access to this kind of stuff, and they do now. I mean, not just with Quicksight and Quicksight, but it's becoming more common for them to know. But then I guess most teams don't know what the questions are. I mean,
True.
if it's a startup, like I start with the question, great, but what is the I don't know. And then generative AI, comes into play, and we'll talk about that too because it's central to Quicksight, I'm assuming. But like, how is generative AI, if is even generative AI what's going to help with this problem of not knowing the question and changing the way people interact with data and analytics and just what you said, right? Like this is for helping people do better decision making.
Sure.
How do we do that? Like, if I don't know the question, is GenAI the solution or the direction here? How do we do this?
Yes. So two things I would like to call out earlier. Like John, you mentioned you're working day in and day out in quick, and it is doing multiple things. So one thing I forget to add when I was talking about quick suite was, hey, we can not only just answer these questions which we have in our head, but also take actions on it. So that is very important to make everything actionable, right? Now coming to your question, Rafael, right? We all know generative AI is reshaping everything, and analytics is also part of everything, right? Enterprise analytics is part. And in a nutshell, how generative AI is transforming is mainly in three ways when it comes to analytics, and specifically uh, quick. So first, what is happening, it's shifting the conversation, right? Like how how we were doing, how we were analyzing data, we were exporting that data. Like I was mentioning earlier, we are exporting that data, we are going deeper, finding and analyzing that data, and then we are how we are making decisions out of that, right? Both the things. So traditional analytics, when we talk about, was focusing only on presenting data through dashboards and reports, whereas Gen AI in general is enabling more natural way of conversational approach. And that is where, like, hey, I can ask a question off of data as vague as it can be. I don't have to be precise, I don't have to know the structure of data, I don't have to know what is in my data, and I can still ask a very vague question, and generative AI is conversational and it will understand the intent. In case it is very vague, it will try to map it back and come back and say, like, hey, did you mean this? Did you mean that? Or here is a starter set of questions that generative AI is using and generating for the users to begin that conversation as an icebreaker. That is happening. Number two, it's blurring between the lines is what I like to call, because it's if we think about it, it's descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics all in one, right? BI tools excelled at telling what happened. Again, going back to that, all BI tools were doing was like, hey, I can tell you what happened, but then making it actionable, finding why it happened and how we can prevent it from happening, or how we can take a different approach of it. That is second thing that generative AI is bringing to table, right? So instead of just what happened, it is explaining why it happened and what you should do about it. And finally, last but not least, it is about accelerating democratization, right? So when we talk about accelerating democratization, we want every user, every person to have access to data, so they can drive and make meaningful decisions as part of whatever they are doing in an organization. So it's very crucial that, hey, with this generative AI coming into mix, Gen AI coming into mix, we make it easier for users to use data and drive meaningful decisions while being responsible about the guardrails that are required in place, the security that is required in place, and everything. And that's what Quick is helping bring together everything and solve that problem for you. So these shifts are like changing how enterprises are viewing analytics, from a reporting tool to a strategic assets that augments your human intelligence across all the levels of decision making.
So
You
that
said something.
security and the go ahead, Rafael. You go with yours. I'll go with mine next on the follow up.
Sure, yeah. So we when we office work, right? Like people used to do spreadsheets and things like that, and then there was like it's hard, like for non people trained with computer kind of thing. Like you got to learn how to use the computer and learn how to do spreadsheets and formulas. I mean, it can get complex really quickly. And then there's BI tools, which adds another layer of complexity. How do you build good dashboards with filtering and everything? When you throw that all out the window and just say speak English, or it doesn't even have to be English, I guess, at this point. Like just speak your whatever language you speak naturally, and you can still get the answers and still get the insights. I think that does open up the access to a lot of people that didn't have that access before, in terms of like employees of your company, for example, and things like that. Even it's quite powerful. I'm sure.
No,
The
absolutely.
query language is a question. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and
No longer
one
SQL.
thing,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. Dashboards are like a lot of folks out there think dashboards are dead. Dashboards have their own place even today, because when you are talking conversationally, when you are asking questions, you get information in bits and pieces, which again you will have to stitch it together, or again uh, rely on AI to summarize those for you, but it doesn't give you that complete end-to-end picture that dashboard gives you today. It's a good starting point, is what I think. Because see, if you don't have dashboards, let me tell you, right? Like if you don't have dashboards, you go start ask your first question, hey, what are my sales? Now it's going to tell what are sales. Okay, what are can you do it by region? It is going to do it by region. Now can you give me details about each of those regions? It's going to go bring those details of those regions. Then you say, hey, can you filter it by XYZ? It's going to filter it by XYZ. You're doing like 10 different questions or 15 different questions. So that is where like usage of generative AI is really important. Like we need to use it in a meaningful way, rather than just using it because it's out there, right? So dashboard will give you that end-to-end story. It will tell you what happened, because that is like very good use of dashboard. But then when we talk about deeper analysis, I want to use generative AI, because that is more tedious task, that is agentic in nature, where I have to go break it down into multiple steps, go step by step, execute each step to get to where I want. And generative AI is built for that. Agentic AI is built for that, to break these complex problems into individual steps, execute them, and get to the answer and insight. So dashboards are definitely my favorite, I will say. It's not like it's my opinion. I might be opinionated here, but then I want to call it out that it has its place, which makes sense to me.
So, as a follow-up to your Gen AI role in enterprise analytics, you mentioned two things. One is the security of the data, and the other is democratization, that everyone is going to get access to the data. Those two things are in tension. How is QuickSuite and how does Quicksight keep all that data secure, even though everyone's going to get access to a user interface that has some version of this? It's going to be able to pipe those questions like, let's go compare month over month, and is that better than month over month this time last year? So those things are still the important questions, and whether you're seeing it in a dashboard or in a natural query form,
Yes.
what does that mean from a security perspective, and how do you keep that tension from causing an enterprise problem?
No, absolutely no. So security is ground zero for AWS, irrespective
Mm-hmm.
of what we do. This is heart of everything we build, is security. So just like any other things we do at AWS, any other service we build at AWS, QuickSuite, it is built around that security boundary to protect customer data. Number one. Number two, we have various different constructs through which you can then apply fine grained access on not just assets within Quick, but also to the data level through row level security constructs, through column level security constructs. Additionally, now with the unification of structured and unstructured data in one place in Quick, you can also have dedicated spaces. We have launched a new feature or construct called spaces within Quicksight, where you are creating a boundary for a knowledge worker, where if a user is using that knowledge worker, you can share a knowledge worker with the user. Once you create, we call it as chat agent. You create a chat agent that is being powered by a space. Now that space has that boundary defined, and when the chat agent is being utilized for answering those questions, in that case, that boundary is completely honored and it doesn't go beyond that boundary. So we have constructs in place to fit various different use cases. It's not one size fits all, right? Security is never going to be one size fits all. So we have various different features, various different constructs to control even at feature level, to control at data level, to control at asset level.
So that space that it gets to play in, that's a bounded context, right? So from a
Yes,
architecting perspective, so you've got this bounded and when you go to have to do, say, um, a third party 3PAO, like you've got to go get audited, someone's got to look at the bounded security boundary of these different things. That's
mhm,
going to be an easy thing for them to go look at. Like, this is the only set of security that we need to analyze. It's not the whole world we need to go look at. It's just the things that are inside that
absolutely,
space. That makes a lot of sense. So
absolutely.
I want to switch gears a little bit and
Mhm.
Before you
tackle.
do that,
Go ahead.
real quick, John, there's
Sure.
a question on the chat. I don't know if you saw. Let me put it up real quick before you switch gears. So we have a question asking, what about asking AI to build the dashboard? Since it can obviously, create the complete
Yes.
web app.
Yes, so this was also available in Quicksight. At reInvent last year, we launched this feature of creating visuals and visuals through natural language. So you can ask those natural language questions and build visuals, and then start building your dashboard through that. It was not just like building visuals; we also supported building calculations, because every time we think about BI, we have calculations, because the metrics needs to be calculated. They have to be rolled up at some level or whatnot. So building calculations, generalizing into buckets and all that, you needed to know that additional syntax and language to be able to create those calculations. So even that is possible to create through natural language questions. It's just like you ask in natural language that I want to create this calculation, and it would spit out that calculation, create and build that calculation based on the inputs you have. And last but not the least, refinement of visuals. You wanted to apply certain conditional formatting, you wanted to change certain things, you wanted to add certain things to an existing chart. All that is possible in Quick, and was possible in Quicksight.
So you can just say, turn that into a Sankey diagram, and it'll put a Sankey chart on there.
Yes.
Yeah, that has been really cool to be able to play around with, and customers are kind of wowed the first time they see it, and after that they want more, right? So it's just,
Yes.
yeah, this is what they've been wanting.
Right.
I want to get into a little bit of controversy. We like to do that on our show, so let's tackle an elephant in the room. QuickSight's faced some criticism. No product, no service is absolutely perfect. So let's get into some of the things around the AWS usage-based pricing philosophy as it relates to QuickSight. Some of the functionality limitations, it kind of started out, like you said, it wasn't fully featured to start out with, and then it's kind of grown in. And then third, a broader skepticism about unified analytics and the place that it actually has today. So let's start with pricing, go through the middle here, looking at that functionality limitations of where we're going, and then
Sure.
what that destination is, and some of the things about whether that unified analytics story is really resonating.
Yeah, sounds good. Like it's not a controversy, I'll say. Like it's a fair question to ask, in my opinion. Like, hey, what is the ideology there, right? Like, so first, regarding the pricing question, right? When we have learned lessons from Quicksight initial model, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw what happened, what is going on, and then QuickSuite's pricing structure has been completely rebuilt from ground up to truly align with our AWS's ideology of pay for value. It's pay for value. Whatever value it brings to the table, we have devised the pricing based on pay for value now. That is number one. Number two, remind me, it was about functionality gaps. Yes. So instead
Right,
of
right. That it started out just the analytics, right? And so there
right.
was some critique there. Yeah.
So thinking, like, if we think about it, right, like if we look at like any older players, they have been around for a long time, and Quicksight, like you said, is only a decade old now. So definitely we were not like when we look at it, we are not like in a catch up game. We are not trying to catch up. That is not feature to feature catch up game. uh, when we look at ourselves, we have focused solving the core problems that make enterprise analytics fail instead of catching up game, right? Then the core problems were data silos, user
Mhm.
adoption, and then disconnect between the insights and action. All these things we have been talking around in various different things. But if we think about it, that was the ideology we went with. Instead of playing the catch up game, we said like, hey, what are the real problems in BI, what are the real problems in enterprise analytics, and we have identified them as data silos, we have identified them as user adoption and disconnect between your insights and actions. So we have tackled those in Quicksuite. And again, Quicksuite is not just having it isn't about having every single feature out there. No, Quicksuite is about having right capabilities that drive actual business outcome and solves those hard challenges that enterprises face today with any other tools.
So
And
I
then
like the way that you phrase that with identifying some of the core problems, like being able to. And I just help walk me through this. Why do we think Quick Suite is going to succeed where all these BI tools throughout my entire career? I've been doing this 25 years, and I'm sure BI tools existed before I started back in 2000. But what is it that we're doing that we think we're going to succeed where these others haven't succeeded yet? Like what's the core philosophy?
right. So going back again, like if you think about the skepticism about unified analytics is understandable
Hmm.
from previous market attempts. I'm not saying no, because what differentiates is like unification of your structured and unstructured data. I'm not saying like, hey, this is first time this is happening, right? A lot of times this has been tried, it has been applied, and there have been some success, failures, but then that didn't stop us from making our attempt, right? Quicksuite's approach has fundamentally been different because it's built on again those three key principles of what, why, and how, right? And those three principles, tying it back to your unified data model, whether it is structured data, whether it is unstructured data, bringing all those insights together and answering, which tells you that end to end story. And beyond that, you can take it and take meaningful actions on it. For example, if there is something you want someone to take an action, you just trigger from your response that Quick is giving and create a Jira ticket. You
Do
create,
something with it. Yeah,
do
not just
something with it.
stop there. Getting
Yes,
insights one thing, being able to make a decision's a second thing.
yes,
Um, being able to do something about it,
yes,
that's power. That's real
and
power.
yes,
That
and
makes a lot of sense when you explain it that way.
yes, and plus it's surrounding everything related to data, right? It's not just like, hey, we are not saying like, hey, I can only connect to relational database, I can only connect it to this, I can only connect to that. We are targeting the data siloed problem because data was sitting in various different systems. Tying it back to that hard problem that we wanted to solve was unification of data, right? That surrounding all of that, plus what is the ultimate proof of this, right? Like, you like, why would you be successful? You think, why would you be successful? I would say the ultimate proof will be in the results when we see, and we are seeing that early adopters, based on our early adopters that have been trying Quick out, achieve outcomes that weren't possible with traditional approaches before. And we have
Hold
like
on right
different.
here because I think we're getting into the next piece. And Rafael, I want to toss
Sure,
this one over to you on that
sure,
unified vision and where things are going. So go
sure.
ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, what I think is the question here, Shrikant, is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming, Quick is also kind of tackling, not necessarily replacing, but doing what Amazon Q business used to do. And that arguably could be categorized as analytics as well, because it's, a chatbot that can connect with your data and things like that. But it goes beyond that a little bit. Like, and you mentioned those features too, like research, deep research. Those things were not, or at least until Quick, they were not tools you would typically see on an analytics workload. So like how do you think this unified approach address, problems, and and not just sound controversial, but what you think makes a good case for how Quick is looking at things differently in a positive way, not just becoming another tool that companies will struggle to implement fully. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fair enough. Yes. So this question has again like two angles to it, is what I would say, right? Like in a response way, right? Like when I'm responding, I want to respond it in two different angles. One, technical angle, and second is organizational perspective. So because the fundamental problems that have been historically plagued enterprise BI adoption is uh, technical. The technical challenges that we have seen is data silos and integration complexity, uh, high barriers for adoption due to pricing, due to technology barriers, due to connectivity, whatnot. Third, disconnect between actions and insights. Again, you might be thinking like Srikanth is beating the same drum again and again, because the fundamental behind Quick has been this. It's like data silos problem is very, it's obvious. Like you you have to search through unstructured data or bunch of documents or anything. You had like traditional approaches, you had to go through structured data, you had traditional approach, but then there was nothing that unified it, right? Like the data silo problem is real. Now, last but not least is cost and complexity of scaling was another issue, right? It was never easy to democratize. Again, goes back and revolves around those three challenges that we talk about. Because of the scaling issues, you were not able to democratize. If you want to democratize, there was cost involved, and there was data silos. All this is tied together with just those four pins, if we think about, right? So those were technical challenges. Now, QuickSuite's unified approach, how does this tackle is in three different ways, right? First, it is completely different than the traditional approach. So instead of asking enterprises to adapt uh, workflows into their adopt BI tools into their workflows, what we are doing is we are doing four integration types in Quick Suite. That is analytics to embedded, where actually work happens, whether that is in existing applications, collaboration, or custom interfaces. When I say that, it's a broader statement. It's not just about embedding, right? So Quick Suite can be like integrated with like other tools. There are 25 plus connectors. You can connect to those other tools like Slack, Teams, your email, your uh, wherever your productivity tools are, like your CRM, Salesforce. So all these are happening, and it can connect to various different tools. It can do that work, right? Second, it solves the last mile problem of analytics, which is uh, struggling with turning insights into actions. Now, with these integrations, you can take those actions right from Quick. You don't have to go navigate between different systems. You can take those actions right from Quick. And third, it addresses your scale and governance issues. It Because it is completely managed, completely serverless. We take care of everything. Uh, and you only worry about bringing your data and your use cases to implement on Quick. So that scaling problem is, it also solves the data democratization problem. So
You mentioned something that I think is important too. I think, one of the barriers I've seen with customers too is like it, every time we talk about BI and it becomes a whole data project and, creating a data lake and putting the data in one place. Sometimes data is across multiple different SaaS projects that they don't even have like full access and control over. Like I think the capability of just one having connectors that goes outside, that's one amazing thing, but most importantly is like being able to not have to organize a schema and create a data catalog at all. Like you just say, here's the data, I have no idea what fields are there, just this is the data, and then it magically works with that. Like I think this is what's going to make it so much easier to not have that paralysis while implementing a data strategy, because you don't have to go through the hardest part. I mean, is this the
yes,
right mentality here?
yeah, that is spot on, Rafael. And then the second and last thing I want to also add, apart from the strategy that I was sharing earlier on how we went about building Quick, Other thing is, it is not just like overnight, right? Like what is the other thing that makes me confident is because we are not just launching a new tool out of the blue, right? We are launching a new approach. Actually, if we think about it, it's not a new tool, it's a new approach that builds on lessons learned from thousands of our customers that were using Quicksight and Amazon Q. It's a new approach of how you handle, how you work in your day-to-day life, how you get to your insights and take actions from there.
So that makes a lot of sense, and it goes back to kind of that second question, talking about the evolution of the 10 years of where this thing's been going, and we're kind of at here. We are here. So we went through. First, we had analysis. Second, we added dashboarding and the ability to actually get those insights and then put those dashboards anywhere to kind of get those in front of all the people that needed them.
Yes.
At the same time, we had chatbots come in and LLMs and transformers, and there was a different speaking interface to be able, a different human interface for being able to get insights out of information that had been
By the way,
locked in
this
before.
was I know LLMs exist out there for a long time, and QuickSight and Q in QuickSight was one of the examples of that. Because if you think about it, back in 2021 there were no public LLMs out there for our usage. Public LLM started only like a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
So back in 2020, what we had done was we had built our own language models that were capable of understanding the intent based on the natural language that the user was putting in, mapping that intent back to the data. And with the power of analytical engine that QuickSight was built on, we were able to generate responses in visual formats, right? So this has been, and like you said, John, right? Very true. Like we started with very small, but then we did not run after catching up. We went with what are the
A
problems you
philosophy.
need to
Yeah.
solve, and we went with that philosophy of solving challenges and problems and making it useful. But then it was progressively done, and we are today at Quick Suite, and I'm sure you all will embrace it, you all will like it, and you all use it day in and day out.
Let's go through some of those things, and you've mentioned it as we've gone through. And then talking about Quick Suite, of course, it's got chat agents, and it can go talk. You can go chat with all of your stuff. So if you had it in email or if you've got it in dashboard, like the data that's behind one of your dashboards, those two things you could bring them together. And you mentioned a whole host of things that you could connect in. So that's with some of the integrations that you can put in with the tooling. So chat agent, is that the primary way that we're probably going to get this, that we will work with Quick Suite in the future?
Chat agents is the way. Yeah, so definitely, like these are knowledge workers, right? So you want to have specialized knowledge workers created. You want because let's say you have a generic chat agent. There
Hmm.
are so many generic agents out there that are based on broad world knowledge, right? But what Quick does is it lets you create those boundaries. It lets you create those intelligent chat agents
Right.
which are focused and targeted towards a particular area of expertise. For example, a HR chat agent, a customer support chat agent,
It has a
a dev.
personality. It's got a way
Yes.
that it's going to interact with folks. It's got rules that you
Yes.
set in place at the same time that you may hand it an
Mhm.
integration or a space, right?
Yes.
So it's going to have behavior that goes along with that system. And
Plus,
it can do stuff too. The agent part of the chat is an important piece.
yes, and
Yep.
plus the web search. You can also mix in web search. That way, you combine broad world knowledge plus your data, which is focused on a particular problem, and you get best of all worlds when it is generating a response.
And so second, we've got spaces. So you got chat agents, then spaces. Spaces is this place where you can bring in and throw a bunch of knowledge in a pile, right?
Yes.
So you've got a whole bunch of different things you can bring together that usually didn't go together. And this, Raphael, whenever you said it, it didn't quite dawn on me till right now. That traditional. So think about the old way and the new way of doing this stuff, right? You start out with, hey, I want to integrate this thing with this thing, and often it's that you used to have to go write that integration. That was you with hands-on keyboard doing something. Maybe it's an ETL, maybe it's
it was
something else, data
it was not
pipelines.
straightforward. It
It
was not
was it
straightforward.
was the battle days are behind us. Is that what I'm
Yes,
hearing? Okay,
yes,
all right.
yes,
So the
and it
space is you can put all that knowledge in a pile, and then it can operate within that boundary.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So the next one though, I don't think we touched on this very much. Third is flows, right? So if I go do a thing, and if I have to go do that thing a second time, so this chat agent can get insights and then take action, right? And if
mhm,
I've decided this is what I want to do
mhm,
over and over again,
yes,
you can make that like an easy button with flows, right?
yes,
Okay,
exactly.
so that's what
So
flows does.
so that is
Tell
what
me a
I
little bit
was.
about flows. What am I missing on this piece?
So that is that's exactly what you said is exactly what flows is
Okay.
about, right? So thing is like there are multiple ways to create your own flows, right? You
Hmm.
can add your own logic into it and build something that you want to execute as part of your day to day routine. It's a repetitive task you want to do. So earlier I was telling you an example of like, hey, what, why, how, right? And even to do that, you have to go through the dashboard, understand what is going on, then go into uh, chat, ask those questions to get the deeper analysis and how you solve. You have to do all of that. Now take all of that work, which is like, hey, if I have to do that research on a given day to get to the answer, it takes me a couple of hours, even with like all the generative AI assisted
Right.
processing and everything. It takes maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But then what if it was an easy button to just click and get to the final answer that I am looking for? That is flows.
You want to do it 15 minutes one time and then set it and let it go after
Yes,
that. Okay.
yes,
And then the last is research, and you told us that. That's where you can go get the next step. So I want to
right,
go figure out how to make this so that this is fixed forever, so you can set it to a research task.
yes.
Okay.
And then
So
there is an also an automate. I know we are going into features
no,
here,
that's
but
the
then
four I
there is
wanted
automate.
to talk
Okay,
with you about. Just try to get the top four on those
sure,
pieces, right?
sure.
Yeah.
That sounds
Go
good.
for it. You were saying
So
there's also
there
automate.
is also automate where it is more like more involved kind of action taking. If I say so, hey, I have this dashboard, this information, that information, and that information is getting gathered. Now I want to also couple it with, let's say, I want to crawl a web page, gather that information, put all of this together and then execute an API to go push it into something else. And that is more like more involved steps, which is more developer oriented steps. Those can
Yeah.
also be created with a easy go graphical user interface, so you don't have to worry about like coding it, hosting it, and doing things. So automate can like automate all of those things for you.
So you don't have to worry about all the hosting, the back end, the
Yes, yes,
infrastructure.
yes.
It's a you go lay it out in a visual interface and
Yeah,
it's
it's
set.
plug
Yeah.
and
So
play code. Let's think of it
that's really
as like
cool.
plug and play code. Yeah.
Hey, John, we're coming up close to time. Like one last question before we
Do it.
close.
Yeah, let's do it. So we got the 6 minutes here. Let's knock it out.
All right. You want me to? You're going to?
You do the honors, sir. Yeah, I've been talking quite a
Okay.
bit here.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Shrikant, to close, like we always try to close with future looking, right? So looking at the future, we know like generative AI is the thing, and agentic interaction is what we're seeing most going towards to. But that or not, like what do you think is the future of quick suite, or not the quick suite of analytics in general for companies? Where are we
Y-
going? I guess is the question.
Yes. Yeah. So see, overall, I agree. Like the overall shift is towards the agentic AI right now, right? Like agentic AI workflows is the shift because you are breaking down those complex problems, solving them through generative AI. So it becomes an agentic because it's like broken down into simpler steps. So fundamental evolution for organizations is, see, no matter which way we are going or where we are headed, right? The problem that I always like tell John or tell anyone is what, right? You start with that question, what? Now, what is that we are trying to solve? We are trying to solve the interactions with data and making decisions. that is going to stay no matter what, right? So for that, organizations should be thinking about their analytic strategy with a crawl walk run approach in this new era of agentic AI is what I think. And that is like, hey, in the near term, build a strong foundation for AI, upskill your resources, focus on scale, well documented architectures. This is like laying the foundation. When we build a building, the foundation is the first thing that we go after, right? So this is like foundation for your AI journey, agentic AI journey, or generative AI journey. That is the short term. Now coming to the midterm, I would say, then begin integrating your capabilities that you are building into your business processes. So you take those and build them, make them operational. Let's, in simple terms, make them operational. Whatever you're building on top of the foundation that you have put, make them operational, make them usable, develop those frameworks and optimizing AI driven operations, right? And then finally, for the long term, you need to position analytics as an intelligent layer overall that connects across all business processes, which will also eventually, which is like, although it is agentic, human in the loop is always needed.
Yeah.
So a hybrid approach for human AI decision frameworks is what I recommend for future looking. And that is the way, if we look at any agentic or any generative AI capability in the market right now, is going with that human in the loop and hybrid approach.
Mm.
I
So
like it.
overall,
Yeah.
the key to understand that it's like, it's not about adopting new technology. It's about fundamentally reimagining how decisions are made in organizations. So it's not about like what technologies, new technology I'm using, but it's about like reimagining. And that's what we did with Q. We
Yeah.
Quick, we are making you reimagine how your day can be with Quick.
I like it. We'll close with this. Like, reimagine how decisions are made on your organization. I'll say this though. Thank you everybody for watching, and people that are going to watch the recordings after. I learned a lot today. I hope you did too. If not, hit me up on LinkedIn, or better yet, hit up Srikanth on LinkedIn. He'll know way better than me on this. And I hope to see you all again in 2 weeks for the next AWS Pulse. It's going to be great. We're going to talk. I don't want to spoil it. Just join us in 2 weeks, and you'll know. It's going to be the best one yet. See you all soon.
Yes, it was great seeing you all, yeah, and talking
Thank
to
you,
you all.
everyone.
Thanks.